The fluorescent lights hummed their eternal song 3 levels beneath the earth, casting everything in Helix Corporation's sublevel C in the same sterile, greenish glow. Cale Morrison pushed his cleaning cart down the narrow corridor, the wheels squeaking in protest against the polished concrete floor. At 28, he'd been working the graveyard shift for 2 years, invisible to the whitecoats who treated him like part of the furniture. Most nights blended together in a haze of disinfectant and monotony. But tonight felt different. Tonight, his supervisor had handed him a new keycard, black instead of his usual blue, and told him to clean the restricted wing. Just the hallways and observation rooms, Jenkins had said, not meeting his eyes. Don't touch anything else, don't ask questions. The restricted wing smelled different. Beneath the usual chemical cocktail lingered something else, something that reminded Cale of hospitals and fear. His footsteps echoed as he made his way deeper into the maze of laboratories and holding cells. Most were dark, but soft light emanated. From one room at the corridor's end, Cale approached cautiously, his curiosity overriding years of learned indifference. Through the reinforced glass window, he saw what looked like a sophisticated containment chamber, transparent walls within walls, creating a prison of perfect visibility. And inside, sitting on a simple cot with her knees drawn to her chest, was a girl. She couldn't have been older than 17, with pale silver hair that caught the light like spun moonbeams. Her skin held an ethereal quality, almost luminescent, and when she lifted her head, Cale found himself staring into eyes, unlike anything he'd ever seen, deep violet flecked with gold and filled with a sadness that made his chest tighten. She wasn't human. That much was obvious, but the expression on her face, the loneliness, the resignation, was utterly, heartbreakingly familiar. Their eyes met through the layers of glass, and she startled, scrambling backward until her shoulders hit the far wall. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Then slowly she raised one trembling hand and pressed it against the inner glass. Cale found himself moving forward without conscious thought. He set down his spray bottle and placed his own palm against the outer barrier, aligning it with hers. The glass was thick, too thick for any warmth to pass through, but something electric seemed to arc between them. "Hello?" he whispered, not sure if she could hear him. Her lips parted in surprise and she pressed closer to the glass. When she spoke, her voice came through a small speaker mounted near the observation window, clearly meant for the scientists to communicate with their subject. You can see me." Her voice was soft, musical, with an accent he couldn't place. "Really see me?" "Of course I can see you." Kyle glanced around nervously, making sure they were alone. "What's your name?" She hesitated, as if the question itself was foreign. "The doctors call me Subject 12, but I remember before they took me." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "My name is Ava." Ava. He tested the name, liking the way it felt on his tongue. "I'm Cale." A ghost of a smile crossed her features. "Cale. That's a strong name." She tilted her head, studying him with those remarkable eyes. "You're not like the others. You don't look at me like I'm a specimen." "Because you're not." The words came out more forcefully than he'd intended. "You're a person, a young woman, who shouldn't be locked in a cage." Tears gathered in her violet eyes and she pressed both palms flat against the glass. "I've been here so long. Sometimes I forget what it feels like to be seen as real." Kyle's heart clenched. He wanted to ask how long, wanted to know how she'd ended up here, but the questions seemed too heavy for this fragile moment. Instead, he said, "You're real to me, Ava. You matter." The tears spilled over then, tracking silver down her luminous cheeks. "No one has said my name in 5 years. 5 years." The number hit him like a physical blow. She would have been just a child when they brought her here. "I have to go," he said reluctantly, hearing footsteps echoing from somewhere deeper in the facility. "But I'll come back tomorrow night if you want me to. Please." The word was barely a breath, but it carried the weight of desperate hope. "Please don't leave me here alone." As Cale gathered his cleaning supplies and moved away from the window, He caught one last glimpse of Ava watching him go, her hand still pressed against the glass like a prayer. He'd spent 2 years perfecting the art of invisibility, of not getting involved, of keeping his head down and his questions to himself. But as he rode the service elevator back to the upper levels, one thought echoed in his mind. Some things were worth being seen for. The next night couldn't come fast enough. Cale found himself distracted throughout his day shift at the warehouse, his mind constantly drifting to violet eyes and silver hair. When evening finally arrived, he practically sprinted through his usual cleaning routine, eager to reach sub-level C. Ava was waiting for him, sitting cross-legged on her cot with her back straight and hands folded in her lap. The moment she saw him approach the window, her entire demeanor transformed, shoulders relaxing, a genuine smile breaking across her face like sunrise. "You came back," she said through the speaker, wonder coloring her voice. "I promised I would." Kyle set down his supplies and pulled up a chair he'd noticed in the hallway. "How are you feeling today?" "Better. Much better." She shifted closer to the glass. "I dreamed about our conversation. It's been so long since I had something pleasant to dream about." Over the following weeks, their nightly meetings became the highlight of both their existences. Kyle learned that Ava came from a world called Luminara, where her people lived in harmony with bioluminescent forests that sang with the wind. She'd been taken during a diplomatic mission. Her parents were ambassadors trying to establish peaceful contact with Earth. "I was curious about your people," she explained one night, her fingers tracing patterns on the glass. "I wandered away from the landing site to pick some of your flowers. They were so different from ours. Solid colors instead of shifting hues. When I looked up, your soldiers were surrounding me." "I'm sorry," Kyle whispered, placing his hand against the glass where hers rested. "I'm so sorry that happened to you." "The worst part wasn't the capture," Ava continued, her voice growing softer. "It was realizing that my curiosity had doomed me. My blood, it has properties your people find valuable. It can heal almost any injury, cure diseases that ravage your kind. They've kept me alive to harvest it." The casual way she spoke of her exploitation made Kyle's stomach turn. "That's not living, Ava, that's existing." "I know." She pressed her forehead against the glass. "But talking with you, it reminds me what living feels like." As the days passed, their conversations grew more intimate. Ava shared stories of her homeworld, crystal cities that grew from the ground like living things, festivals where her people danced among floating lights. The way her mother's laughter sounded like silver bells. In return, Cale told her about Earth's simple pleasures, the smell of rain on asphalt, the taste of fresh strawberries, the feeling of sand between your toes at the beach. "I want to show you all of it," he said one night, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "I want to take you to see the ocean, to feel real sunlight on your skin instead of these artificial lights." Ava's breath caught. "Cale, I know it's impossible," he said quickly. "I know this is crazy, but I can't stop thinking about it, about you, about what your life could be like if you were free." She was quiet for a long moment, studying his face with those remarkable eyes. "Is it wrong that I think about it too? That I imagine what it would be like to touch your hand without this glass between us?" Heat flooded through Cale's chest. "No, it's not wrong. My people, we don't form bonds lightly. When we connect with someone, it's for life, soul deep." She placed both palms against the glass and he mirrored her gesture. "I never thought I'd feel that connection with anyone, especially not someone from the world that imprisoned me." "But you do?" The question came out rough, hopeful. "I do." Her smile was radiant. "I love you, Cale Morrison. I love your kindness, your courage, the way you see me as more than my circumstances. I love that you make me remember who I was before this place tried to erase me." "I love you too," he whispered, wishing desperately that he could kiss her, hold her, prove with actions what words couldn't fully express. "I love your strength, your hope, the way you find beauty even in darkness. I love your laugh, your stories, the way you make me want to be better than I am." They sat in comfortable silence, hands pressed against opposite sides of the glass, letting the weight of their confession settle between them. Finally, Ava spoke again. The doctors have been talking about increasing the extraction schedule. They think they've found a way to synthesize my blood properties, but they need larger samples to test their theories. Fear shot through Cale like ice water. How much larger? Enough that my body might not be able to recover between sessions. Her voice remained steady, but he could see the terror in her eyes. They're planning to move me to a different facility next month, one with better containment protocols. No, the word came out sharp, final. No, they can't do that. They can do whatever they want, Kyle. I'm not a person to them. I'm property. Not to me. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against the glass to match hers. To me, you're everything, and I won't let them take you somewhere I can't reach you. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe it's time to stop imagining what freedom would look like and start making it happen. Ava's eyes widened. You're talking about helping me escape. I'm talking about getting you out of here before they have the chance to move you. His mind was already racing, calculating possibilities and obstacles. I don't know how yet, but I'll find a way. I promise you, Ava. I won't let them take you from me. She smiled then, brilliant and fierce. Then we'd better start planning. The restricted archives were housed behind a door Cale had walked past 100 times without giving it a second thought. But tonight, armed with a keycard he'd carefully lifted from a dozing security guard, he was finally going to learn the full truth about Helix Corporation's activities. The room was smaller than he'd expected, lined with filing cabinets and computer terminals that hummed quietly in the darkness. Cale made his way to the nearest workstation and began his search, his heart hammering against his ribs. What he found made his blood run cold. Subject 12, Ava, was just one of dozens of extraterrestrial beings held in facilities across the globe. The documents detailed a systematic program of abduction, experimentation, and exploitation that had been running for over a decade, but it was the medical reports that nearly made him sick. The blood extraction procedures were far more invasive than he'd imagined. They weren't just drawing blood, they were harvesting bone marrow, spinal fluid, organ tissue. The reports documented Ava's declining health over the years, her body's increasing struggle to regenerate after each session, and according to the latest memo from Dr. Helena Voss, the facility's chief researcher, they were running out of time. Subject 12's regenerative capabilities have decreased by 34% over the past 6 months, the report stated. Recommend immediate transition to Terminal Protocol 7. Full harvesting procedures should yield sufficient material for synthesis completion before subject expires. Terminal Protocol 7. The words swam before Cale's eyes as he read the attached procedures. They were planning to kill her, slowly, methodically, extracting everything useful from her body before disposing of what remained. And it was scheduled for next week. Kyle was so absorbed in the horrifying documents that he didn't hear the footsteps in the corridor until it was too late. The door opened behind him and harsh light flooded the room. Well, what do we have here? Cale spun around to find Dr. Helena Voss standing in the doorway, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, and her pale blue eyes sharp with curiosity, rather than anger. Behind her stood Commander Blake Torres, the facility's head of security, a mountain of a man with scars crisscrossing his face and arms like a roadmap of violence. Dr. Voss, Cale said, trying to keep his voice steady. I was just reading classified files about our most valuable asset. She stepped into the room, her heels clicking against the floor. How interesting. Tell me, Mr. Morrison, what exactly has Subject 12 told you about her capabilities? The question hit him like a physical blow. They knew. Somehow they knew about his conversations with Ava. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but even he could hear how weak it sounded. Dr. Voss smiled, a cold, predatory expression. Oh, but I think you do. You see, we monitor all interactions with our subjects, every word, every gesture, every heartfelt confession of love. She moved closer, circling him like a shark. Did you really think we wouldn't notice a janitor spending 45 minutes each night cleaning a single hallway? Cale's mind raced. If they'd been monitoring everything, then they knew about his feelings for Ava, knew about their plans to escape. But if that were true, why were they confronting him now instead of simply removing him from the equation? You want something from me, he realized aloud. Very good. Dr. Voss nodded approvingly. You see, Mr. Morrison, Subject 12 has been uncooperative lately. Her stress levels have increased dramatically, which affects the quality of her biological output. But with you, she's calm, compliant, happy even. The pieces clicked into place, and Cale felt sick. You want to use me to keep her docile during the terminal procedures. Exactly. Your presence will make the extraction process much more efficient. Less struggle, less waste. She gestured to Torres, who stepped forward with a tablet in his massive hands. Sign this contract and we'll make it worth your while. Refuse and, well, industrial accidents happen all the time. Kyle stared at the tablet, his hands shaking. The contract was a non-disclosure agreement combined with what amounted to a pact with the devil. His silence and cooperation in exchange for a substantial payment and a promise that his death would be made to look accidental rather than malicious. Need time to think about it, he said. You have until tomorrow night, Dr. Voss replied. Choose wisely, Mr. Morrison. Subject 12's comfort during her final days depends on your decision. As they escorted him from the archives, Cale's mind was already working. They thought they had him cornered, thought they could use his love for Ava against him. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd shown him exactly how much time he had left to get her out. The next evening, Cale approached Ava's containment chamber with a heavy heart. She was waiting for him as always, but her usual smile faded when she saw his expression. What's wrong? She asked immediately. They know about us, he said without preamble. They've been watching, listening to everything. And Ava, they're planning to kill you next week. Her face went pale, but she didn't break down. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin. Then we don't have much time. I've been thinking about the layout of this place, the security protocols, the shift changes, Cale said urgently. There's a window, tomorrow night, during the weekly system maintenance. Most of the staff will be gone, and the automated systems will be running on backup power. What about the locks, the alarms? I've been studying the schematics. There's an emergency protocol that can override all containment systems simultaneously. It's designed for evacuation scenarios. If I can reach the main control room, it's suicide, Ava interrupted. Even if you could get me out of this chamber, how would we get past security? How would we escape the building? Cale reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device, an electromagnetic pulse generator he'd constructed from components stolen from the electronics lab. This should disable their communications and most of their security systems for about 10 minutes, long enough for us to reach the service tunnels. And then we disappear. I have some money saved, and I know people who can help us get new identities. It won't be easy, but it's better than the alternative. Ava pressed her hands against the glass, and he matched her gesture. If we do this, there's no going back. You'll be giving up everything. Your job, your home, your entire life. My life is already here, Cale said simply. With you. Everything else is just details. She smiled then, fierce and beautiful. Then let's give them hell. The maintenance bay buzzed with activity as technicians prepared for the weekly system update. Cale moved among them like a ghost, invisible in his janitor's uniform, his heart pounding with each step toward the control room. He'd spent hours memorizing the facility's layout, timing the security patrols, identifying every camera and sensor between Ava's chamber and freedom. The electromagnetic pulse device felt heavy in his pocket, a tangible reminder of how much depended on the next few minutes. He'd tested it 3 times on isolated systems, and each time it had worked perfectly. But theory and practice were different things, and failure meant not just capture. It meant watching the woman he loved die slowly in a laboratory. System. Maintenance commencing in 5 minutes, came the announcement over the facility's intercom. All non-essential personnel, please evacuate sub-levels B and C. Cale slipped into a supply closet and waited, counting heartbeats until the corridors fell silent. Through the small window, he watched the last technician disappear into an elevator. Now or never. The control room was protected by both a keycard scanner and a biometric lock. Kyle had anticipated this. He'd been collecting discarded coffee, cups from Dr. Voss's office for weeks, carefully preserving her fingerprints on strips of tape. The forgery wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. It just needed to work once. The scanner beeped green and Kale was inside. The room was a maze of monitors and control panels, each one managing a different aspect of the facility's operations. He found the containment controls and began entering, the override sequence he'd memorized from the stolen schematics. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, muscle memory taking over as his conscious mind focused on listening for approaching footsteps. System override initiated, the computer announced in its neutral voice. Emergency evacuation protocol activated. All containment fields will be disabled in 60 seconds. 60 seconds. Kyle activated the EMP device and felt the subtle shift in the air as electromagnetic energy flooded the facility's network. Lights flickered, computers rebooted, and somewhere in the distance an alarm began to wail before cutting off abruptly. He ran. Sublevel C had never felt so long. Kyle's footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet corridors as emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red. He reached Ava's chamber just as the containment field shimmered and died. She was already standing, pressed against the inner glass wall, her eyes bright with hope and terror. The moment the field collapsed, she pushed through the airlock-style entry and stumbled into the corridor. For the first time in 5 years, no barriers stood between them. Kyle caught her as she fell, her legs weak from disuse, and the feeling of her warm body against his chest nearly overwhelmed him. She was real, solid, alive in his arms. "You did it," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "You actually did it." "We're not out yet," he said, but he couldn't resist brushing his lips against her forehead. Even that brief contact sent electricity through his entire body. They moved together through the facility's emergency passages, Ava's strength returning with each step. The EMP had done its job. Most of the security systems were offline, and the few cameras that remained functional showed only static. But they both knew it wouldn't last long. "The service tunnels are just ahead," Kyle said as they reached a maintenance hatch. "They connect to the old subway system. We can—" The sound of heavy footsteps echoed from behind them. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness, accompanied by shouted orders. "There, Section C7. "They've found us," Ava said, but there was no fear in her voice, only determination. Kale wrenched open the hatch and helped her through, then followed her into the narrow tunnel beyond. The space was barely wide enough for one person, forcing them to crawl single file through decades of dust and debris. Behind them, the pursuit continued. Torres's voice boomed through the facility's backup communication system. "Seal all exits. They're heading for the tunnels." The service passage opened into a larger maintenance corridor that ran parallel to the abandoned subway line. Here, finally, they could stand and run properly. Ava moved with surprising grace despite her long confinement, her alien physiology, adapting quickly to the physical demands of escape. They reached the subway platform just as their pursuers emerged from the service tunnel. Flashlight beams swept across the cavernous space, searching for targets. "This way," Kale whispered, leading Ava toward the old tracks. "There's an exit about half a mile down the line." But as they dropped down onto the tracks, more lights appeared, ahead of them. Torres had anticipated their route. "Mr. Morrison," the security chief's voice echoed through the tunnel. "There's nowhere to run. Surrender now, and we'll make this easy for both of you." Kale and Ava pressed themselves against the tunnel wall, hidden in the shadows between emergency lighting fixtures. She was breathing hard, her luminescent skin glowing faintly in the darkness. "I'm slowing you down," she whispered. "My body, it's not used to this much activity." "Then we rest," Kale said firmly. "We figure out another way." She turned to face him in the narrow space, her violet eyes reflecting the distant lights. "Kyle, I need to tell you something. About my people, about what happens when we bond with someone." "Now?" he asked, confused by the timing, especially now. She reached up and touched his face, her skin warm against his cheek. When my people find our life mate, we share something deeper than just emotions. We share life force itself. If I'm dying, I can give you my strength. If you're hurt, I can heal you. But it requires... She hesitated. It requires physical connection, a joining of souls. Understanding flooded through him. You're talking about making love. I'm talking about bonding for life. Once we take that step, we'll be connected until one of us dies. Your life will be tied to mine, and mine to yours. Her thumb traced across his lips. I know it's not fair to ask this of you now when we're trapped and desperate, but Kale, I can feel my strength fading. The years of captivity, the procedures, and my body is failing. What are you saying? I'm saying that if we bond, I can share what's left of my life force with you. Make you stronger, faster, more resilient. Give us a real chance at escape. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. But I'm also saying that I love you, and if we're going to die in this tunnel, I want to die as your mate, completely yours, as you'll be completely mine. The footsteps were getting closer. Soon, Torres and his team would find their hiding spot. But in this moment, surrounded by danger and uncertainty, Kyle had never been more sure of anything in his life. Yes, he said simply. Ava smiled, radiant even in the darkness, and pulled him down to her. Their lips met with desperate hunger, 5 years of loneliness and longing pouring into that first kiss. Her mouth was soft and warm, tasting of starlight and promises, and when her tongue touched his, energy sparked between them like lightning. I love you, she whispered against his lips. My heart, my soul, my everything. I love you too, he replied, his hands tangling in her silver hair. Forever. What followed was urgent and passionate and beautiful, a claiming that transcended the physical, binding them together in ways that human language couldn't express. As their bodies joined in the darkness, Kale felt Ava's life force flowing into him, strengthening him while his own energy merged with hers in an endless cycle of giving and receiving. When it was over, they lay entwined in the shadows, breathing hard, both of them changed in fundamental ways. Kale could feel her presence in his mind like a warm glow, could sense her emotions as clearly as his own, and he could feel the strength she'd given him, not just physical, but spiritual, emotional, complete. Better? He asked softly. Perfect, she replied, then pulled him to his feet. Now let's go home. They moved through the tunnels like wraiths, their enhanced senses allowing them to avoid the search teams with ease. The bond between them had created something new, not quite human, not quite alien, but something uniquely theirs. By dawn, they had reached the surface. The safe house was a run-down motel on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place where cash was king and questions weren't asked. Kale had contacted his friend Marcus, a former military man who'd gone off-grid after witnessing too many government cover-ups, and within hours they had new identities, clean clothes, and a plan to disappear completely. But freedom, they quickly learned, came with a price. You've got every alphabet agency in the country looking for you, Marcus said, tossing a stack of newspapers onto the rickety table. The headlines screamed about terrorist attacks on government facilities, dangerous criminals on the loose, national security threats. They're painting you as some kind of domestic terrorist who stole classified biological weapons. Ava studied the papers with growing horror. Her photograph, clearly taken from security footage, was plastered across every front page, but the girl in the picture looked nothing like a victim. The image had been manipulated to make her appear menacing, alien, dangerous. Biological weapon, she repeated softly. Is that what they think I am? It's what they're telling people you are, Marcus corrected. Truth doesn't matter when you're dealing with Black Ops programs. They'll say whatever keeps the public from asking uncomfortable questions. Kale pulled Ava closer to him on the lumpy couch, feeling her distress through their bond. We knew this wouldn't be easy. Easy, Marcus laughed bitterly. Son, you've got no idea what you're up against. Helix Corporation has ties to every major government in the world. They've got unlimited resources, unlimited reach, and a very strong motivation to get their property back. She's not property, Cale said sharply. To them she is, and they'll burn down half the country to retrieve her if they have to. Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious. I can get you out of the country, but it'll cost, and even then, you'll never be truly safe. They'll keep looking, keep hunting, until they find you or you're both dead. Over the following days, they learned just how far Helix's reach extended. Bank accounts were frozen, credit cards canceled, old friends and family members placed under surveillance. The few people brave enough to help them did so at great personal risk, knowing that association with the fugitives could destroy their lives. But the worst part was the slow realization that they couldn't run forever. I'm getting weaker, Ava admitted one evening as they sat in yet another anonymous motel room. The bond between them meant Cale could feel her decline as clearly as his own heartbeat. My body is breaking down. The years of captivity, the procedures, I gave you as much life force as I could, but there isn't much left. Then we find a way to get you medical help, Cale said desperately. There has to be someone who can what? Heal an alien physiology that human medicine doesn't understand? She took his hands in hers, her skin noticeably cooler than it had been days earlier. Kyle, my love, I'm dying. I've been dying for years. The only reason I lasted as long as I did was hope. Hope that someday I'd be free, that someday I'd find someone who could love me despite what I am. I don't love you despite what you are, he said fiercely. I love you because of what you are. You're the most beautiful, brave, incredible person I've ever known. She smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. And you gave me something I never thought I'd have, a chance to choose how my story ends. That's worth everything. The final confrontation came sooner than expected. They were in a small cabin in the mountains, trying to plan their next move, when the helicopters appeared. Black aircraft with no identifying marks surrounding the building like mechanical vultures. Cale Morrison, Ava of Luminara, came Dr. Voss's voice through a loudspeaker. You're surrounded. Come out peacefully, and we can discuss terms. Terms? Cale called back, helping Ava to the window so she could see their situation. What terms? Your girlfriend is dying, Mr. Morrison. We can help her. Our medical facilities are the only place on Earth equipped to treat her condition. Surrender now, and we'll do everything in our power to save her life. It was a lie. Cale knew it. And, from the look on Ava's face, she knew it too. But it was a seductive lie, one that played on their desperation and love for each other. Don't, Ava whispered. Don't let them use me against you. I won't lose you, he replied, pulling her close. I can't. You won't. Not really. She pressed her forehead against his. Our bond means I'll always be part of you, just as you'll always be part of me. Even death can't change that. Outside, the helicopters were landing. Armed soldiers poured out, surrounding the cabin with military precision. They had perhaps minutes before the assault began. There's another way, Ava said suddenly. The bond between us, it works both ways. I gave you my life force, but you can give it back, all of it. What are you talking about? I can burn bright one last time. Use every bit of energy we share to create an electromagnetic pulse that will disable their equipment. Give you a chance to escape in the confusion. No. The word came out sharp, final. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me. It's not sacrifice if it's choice, she said gently. And this is my choice, Cale. Let me save the man I love. Let me mean something more than just a victim or a weapon. The soldiers were at the door now, preparing to breach. In moments, they would be inside. Cale looked into Ava's violet eyes and saw not fear but peace. She had made her decision and nothing he could say would change her mind. I love you, he whispered. I love you too. Forever and always. She kissed him then, pouring everything she had into that final connection. Cale felt her life force rushing through him, building to a crescendo that made his entire body burn with power. And then, with a smile on her lips and love in her eyes, Ava let go. The explosion of electromagnetic energy was visible from orbit, a blue-white pulse that disabled every electronic device within a 50-mile radius. Helicopters fell from the sky, vehicles died in place, and communication systems went dark across the entire region. In the aftermath, as emergency services struggled to understand what had happened, a lone figure walked away from the smoking ruins of the cabin. Cale Morrison, forever changed by love and loss, disappeared into the wilderness and was never seen again. But sometimes, on clear nights when the stars seemed especially bright, travelers in those mountains reported seeing a figure walking the ridgelines, a man who glowed with soft silver light, never alone, always accompanied by the faint sound of musical laughter carried on the wind. Love, as it turned out, was indeed stronger than death, and some bonds once forged could never be broken.